to be able to be connected to the global world from Zimbabwe. Dr. Chimboza is a change management consultant who has previously worked with the RBZ in Zimbabwe, with MMCZ in Zimbabwe. She holds a PhD in organizational development and change management. Those three are our panelists for this session. And I'm just going to ask Mr. Matthew Mamina to go first, give us a small intro into the topic. After Mr. Mamina, we go straight to Mr. Kutekwa and then Dr. Angela Chimboza. Thank you.
Thank you, Perpetua. You've already introduced me. There is no need to reintroduce myself. So our topic is on how can organizations use project management as a tool to deliver strategy and manage transformation. And what I firstly want to address is what would happen without project management. And you find that if there is a formal structure to manage projects, the formulation of strategies then becomes a fragmented process. And there is no robust structure for capturing ideas and decision-making. So in that case, you then find ideas being thrown around in organizations. I like what Norman just said, that the whole idea is to execute ideas. So when you don't have a proper structure for project management, your ideas are just thrown around and there is no transformation into tangible business propositions. And then in such a case where project management is not used, you would also find decisions being made in a reactive rather than proactive approach. And in that case, you then find people focusing on short-term or immediate objectives at the expense of long-term goals of any project. And then another important aspect is that the strategy formulation process itself, it just involves defining a clear goal as well as how the goals will be achieved. And project management then becomes an indispensable framework that can clarify how organizational goals can be achieved. And one way that project management does that is to give a bird's eye view of the project, where you have clear demarcations of the project stages. And this informs the project leaders on the degree of influence that their decisions would have at those different project stages. So for instance, at the planning stage, there is usually the greatest influence on project variables. And therefore, so much effort should be expended during the planning stage. That is where you should then forecast and foresee the future, and ensuring that your project will be flexible to respond to unexpected events in the future. You see, there is the COVID-19 pandemic right now, and organizations who would have foreseen the future and forecast that someday things might change and people might have to work from home, they would then have found themselves flexible in this COVID-19 pandemic situation. I'll give an example from a mining context. We have seen that the COVID-19 pandemic stimulated a rally in the gold prices, and mining companies that had flexible project plans would have been able to quickly expand production and take advantage of the market upside than those who would try to take a reactionary approach and expand their production just because the gold prices started to rally. So this is just a brief overview of what would happen without project management, and how project managers or project leaders can reap benefits from using the project management from frameworks.
Thank you very much, Matthew. That was quite a mouthful, but all the same, thank you. I will hand over to Mr. Kutekwa to just give us brief opening remarks with regards to this topic, and then we can then direct the discussion.
Thank you, Madam Chair. The topic we are discussing here is how can organizations use project management as a tool to deliver transformation. And it's quite a broad question, actually. There are so many ways to answer that question. But from my own point of view, I would say without project management, there is obviously no transformation to talk about anyway. But to keep it as simple as we have been advised earlier on, it is really a matter of moving from organizational strategy to projects, because strategy gives us objectives, and then we look at the benefits and then the deliverables. And those deliverables are what we now call projects. And in an organization, we need to look at the structure. How we want to structure our organization so that it delivers projects. And as we know from theories and so on, we got different types of organizations, 3 types normally. And that's the functional organization structure, where we have our traditional functions, finance, operations, HR, and so on. Or a projectized organization where we have specific, it's divided into projects which need to be delivered. And a matrix one, which we are trying to have balance between power of the project manager and also the functional managers. And then, of course, the talent, we need to train our people to deliver projects. And overarching there is the issue that an organization should be an entrepreneurial organization. I don't know if that makes sense, but that organization must be entrepreneurial. And to do that, it uses projects to transform. And then there is this issue of project governance, which has not been given much attention it deserves. We know very well that there's always national governance, and at some stage, national governance transformed into corporate governance, which was like a delegation by the national authorities to corporates. And governance being really to
sound. Ah. Yeah. Hmm. Mm. Mm. Are we coming back?
We can hear your views and your thoughts. Dr. Chimboza, can you hear me?
Very well. I don't know if you can hear me.
Yes, finally. Now you're loud and clear. You were meant to introduce yourself earlier on before we got cut. So please, in short, I know you're respect of time, kindly introduce yourself, introduce the topic of discussion, and then we get deeper into the conversation. Thank you.
Are you talking to me?
Yes, I was talking to you, Dr. Chimboza.
Okay, I kind of missed something there. Sorry about that. Anyway, thank you very much. Thank you for having me on this PMIZ conference. I'm very honored to be here. And thank you for the support. And thank you for such a novel idea on how we can talk about our profession. And our topic says, how can organizations use project management as a tool to deliver strategy and manage transformation? We know that all progressive organizations view excellence in execution as the number one challenge, a desired end state. And this is one that project management can help organizations attain. This idea of excellence in execution. We can have our strategy, we can have all those things on paper, but if we cannot implement it, if we cannot execute it, then it becomes it doesn't meet the mission or the goals of the organization. We know that we need transformation, and transformation is not haphazard. It has to be planned. The nature of project management methodology and approaches is such that we have to plan. We have to have the whole initiative. The whole initiative has to be planned and organized and orderly and followed during the execution for it to be successful. So when we have our strategy, then we need our project management to implement it, to make it a success. And we need project management allows us to have this detail, this operational detail on the ready, available, planned already, and also allows for tactical adjustments for our project as it progresses, and where we need maybe updates, where we need reviews or changes. We can do that easily in the context of our project because it defines exactly how we're going to do this. And why we need project management is also because, like I said, for the implementation of strategy. And concerns about the implementation of strategy have gained a lot of momentum in literature, in industries, in everyday practice, because you have your strategy, you have your project, and the project delivers. But how do you know really it's still within what you want? Because during the course of the project, the life cycle, you're able to turn your project around and make sure you're within the goals you want. And of course, like we talked about, we're now living in a world where we have all these problems that are unique, that are challenges that have never been seen before. And as also the economy and the markets have gone global, things are very fluid. It's very volatile, and also on that we can add on the COVID and all these disruptions. So we need to catch up. We need to manage limited resources as well, and in a timely fashion. That's why we have to plan our projects. We have to have all the resources we have, however limited they are. We can then be able to deliberately plan the action to create the conditions for the success, and and have them put in place so that our strategy is met, and our leadership goals, the processes, the skills. We all need these systems in place. And project management also allows us to utilize all these skills that we need, that are important for the success, because we have different subject matter experts coming together on this project. And so project management not only supports a strategy, but also has a big impact on the business strategy and how it is implemented and how it is realized or executed. So this is what I could talk about when we talk about how can project management be used as a tool to facilitate or deliver strategy and manage transformation. That was mostly like the what and the why. And then we also have the how, which we can talk about later when we hear from other panelists. Thank you. I can't hear her because she's muted. I can't.
I can't hear you. I can't hear you, Perpetua.
We can't hear you.
No.
Moderator, we cannot hear you.
No.
No, we cannot hear you. We can hear you.
No. No.
Nothing.
I'm sure the audience can't hear you also.
Okay.
We could hear you from the laptop, but then there was some noise.
Can you hear me, Matthew?
Yes, I can.
I can hear you too.
You can hear me now?
Yes.
You guys are muted. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. I'm not muted.
Now we can't hear you.
Oh my God.
You see, when you talk with your laptop like that, when you're not talking, just pause it. For now, it's the one who is killed yourself, so it's not of it now, so you can proceed. Okay. So when you're not talking, you see there's a lot of it, so you just.
Okay. Hello, guys. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Say that again, Matthew.
I can hear you.
I can hear you.
You cannot like talk at the same time. So what I was saying is that after as soon as you're done speaking,
I close it so that they can talk.
Then exactly.
Oh, I see.
You have to talk
okay.
once at a time.
Oh, okay.
You get it.
All right. All right. The question I'd addressed to you, Matthew, is to say the COVID-19 was a huge disruptor to businesses worldwide. Yes. How can we as project managers use PM tools to ensure that in the event that this once in a lifetime event recurs, we are better suited to adjust to these developments? With respect to business process reengineering, business continuity plans, are we there yet in terms of our risk profiling and risk readiness in the event of uncertainties?
Okay, thank you, Perpetua. My response to that is that the only way that organizations can best respond to pandemics such as the COVID-19 is to ensure that they forecast, they have, tangible forecasting models or reliable forecasting models. And the other thing is that I talked about previously is that of flexibility, right? You find that when we are planning our projects these days, we are using the conventional tools, for instance, the discounted cash flow, where we have a single part of assumptions or a single set of assumptions that when those assumptions don't turn out to be true, we find ourselves in trouble. So the whole idea is to make sure that we address the uncertainty issue at the planning stage of any project. And how do we do that? Instead of coming up with a single set of assumptions, they should be, multiple sets of assumptions to say, if this happens, we'll respond in this way. This is not the first time that we have had a pandemic such as, COVID-19. We had the Spanish flu. And, when you're planning your projects, if you happen to look at historical data, you can then, come up with responses for future events and unexpected events. As I said earlier on, that the most influence or the greatest influence for a project is at the planning stage. So once you have robust plans and you make sure that your project is flexible to respond to unforeseen events, you can then survive in unforeseen events such as the COVID-19. So the other thing is also cultural change, the process of cultural change. Digital transformation has been preached for the past, 10 years, five years, right? And there are organizations that were already on a path of embracing those technologies. And when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, those organizations were prepared, right, to then survive in such an environment. You find that organizations that had already embraced digital technologies could, provide online services much more easily. I'll give an example of educational institutions in Zimbabwe and how they were unprepared, to embrace digital technologies. They only started thinking about online learning when the pandemic hit. And there was a problem because they wanted to implement online systems in such a short space of time. Now, when you do that, that's sort of reactionary, and it can result in problems during the project cycle.
Matthew, for that commentary. I think we also note that from the COVID-19, those governments that worked very closely with the corporations in their countries, we saw them rising up to the occasion through government subsidies, through aid, through various forms of assistance. Because you note that a lot of these businesses, they were affected as they participated in the value chain cycle. For instance, maybe some business that was in the business of perishables, the borders were suddenly closed, the airlines were suddenly halted, and someone had maybe tons and tons of perishables. We saw businesses going under. Mr. Kutegwa, how do you think project managers and governments can work together to influence the success of national projects towards nation building?
We can't hear him. We can't hear. Can you hear him?
I can't.
We can't hear him.
Are willing to save in the case of Zimbabwe, for example, we have quite a few young people who didn't even go to the liberation war, but they're itching to contribute, and they want to leave a better country for the future generations, and they're itching to help in one way or the other. So the key message here is collaboration and trust, and I think it is very possible to go that route in many countries.
Thank you, Mr. Tekwa. Angela, you are change management expert. How would project managers use change management, our change management expertise, to influence transformation, especially across nations, across organizations, and across businesses?
Sure. Thank you very much. I'm glad to talk on this subject because we know projects are really the vehicle that is driving change in organizations mostly. And whatever projects that are there, they really bring an element of change. So what is important at the beginning of this is for any change to be effective, to be accepted, you need buy-in. So we need people, all the stakeholders to be involved in this change when it's from the time it's being initiated. We talk about the field voice. We need to find out what the people who are going to be affected by this change feel, what they think. We need to be upfront and foremost honest with them, clear on how this change is going to affect them. This may be change on the job, like we have new software, new hardware, new processes, or whatever it is on the job, or even change like I want to access something, I'm a lay person on the street, I want to access something in a company or in a government. If that system has changed, if that process has changed, we need everybody to be informed of this change, even before it happens. We're going to change this because we want to improve our service, we want to improve the quality of the product, or we want to improve the process or whatever it is, or quality. Then people need to know about that. And they need to know, how is this going to affect you as a consumer or a stakeholder? Is it going to make your life easier? Are you going to appreciate the product or the good more, or the service more? So this communication is needed with all the stakeholders. So the other thing is buy-in, of course, before it's involved with this. And we need to, sponsors of the change, be it government or private companies, whatever, they need to make sure there's buy-in in the product. That's where we have to have the communication plans that suit the people. The communication plan for a manager, a general manager, a CEO, or finance person, it will be different from the communication plan you have for the end users of this product you have, who are going to be affected by this change. So that's where we need really to have organizational readiness, and by the organization we mean even the people in the organization, if this is a change within the organization, and also a change that affects people outside there. We also need them to have an awareness and a readiness for this change, which is what I was talking about having communication, finding out the field voice for the people, their fears, and how you allay their fears and make sure they're prepared for this change. And also we need to know how, when the change comes, if there are problems, if there are issues, the maintenance of the change, the training for this change. For example, in some governments, they're now using project management for their projects because it allows the change, because by the time you come up with your plan, you already know how it's going to affect people, when what is going to happen during the process of the change. And you need your change element, your change piece to be involved really from the beginning, not only come at the end. the change must be kind of like intertwined or embedded in the project plan, so that whatever comes, the outcome of the project, the outcome of the product is not a shock, it's not a surprise. People are ready for it, they are prepared. And also that ensures that our project is successful if the change aspect is interwoven with the planning. We start from the beginning, involving the change experts, the change preparations, the readiness for the change right from the beginning. So that's one other thing. And also we need to have the process detailed for everybody who's affected by this phase. By this phase, for example, we will be doing this. So we'll be migrating like this. For example, right now I'm working on a data migration, and already people know from way back what's going to happen with the data migration. And you don't want to come to the office one day and you find that, oh, I can't access my computer. Oh, this was here, but it's now over here. What happened? And all those things. Even when now we have software updates, people have to be prepared for that. Even if it means they have to go for training to learn about the new mechanizations on the shop floor, in the factory, or learn about the new computer hardware they have. That's why I also have, you need to have a list of questions that are possible, and prepare them in your if frequently asked questions. You have a brochure out there to prepare people for the change. You have your SOPs, standards of operation of procedures, so that people will know without getting surprised and shocked. And once we prepare people, a change is always acceptable. And then of course the outcomes of our projects is can be implemented and accepted and come into use immediately, than have people still resisting and yet the project is delivered. So that's what I can talk about change at the moment. Thank you.
Thank you, Angela. It's quite fascinating that we all desire change, but at the same time we fear change because with every change, some of it is positive, some of it is negative. I think at this point, would like to open up to the floor so that we have the floor's contributions and questions as well, which our panelists will be ready to answer. So open to the floor. Our virtual audience, you can raise your hand to get an opportunity to speak, or you can type in your question. We'll just take 3 questions very shortly before we move on to the next presentation. I suppose we don't have, thank you, Engineer Chaza, you may go ahead.
Can't hear anything if anybody is speaking. There's a question there. Did you see it? There's a question in the chat box.
Okay, we have a question from Lawrence Majua, and he's asking, how is project management embracing to the 4th industrial revolution? How is project management embraced in the fourth industrial revolution?
Okay, I'll respond to that.
You may go ahead, Matthew.
Okay. I would just like to say the relationship between project management and the fourth industrial revolution is that of change management and cultural, change management. So you find that for implementation of technologies related to the fourth industrial revolution, that is your Internet of Things and all those things, you need both generations. You need the experienced, generation, and then you need the digitally literate millennials. So it becomes a process of creating, cross-generational teams that can work together and implement some of these technologies. So I'll talk about the Internet of Things, for instance. And as a person who is from a mining background, in a mining setup, it would then change the whole data collection process. We are talking about sensors on machines, and then we are talking about the analysis of that data. We are also talking about the reconciliation of operations data and versus our targets. So you find that the experienced generation is still needed, for the transformation phase, because they know which data is important and which data should be collected and which data can give us, the most important indicators regarding any operations. And then in terms of the other aspects of the fourth industrial revolution, that is your automation. Many people are afraid that they will lose their jobs, but the whole concept is that new jobs will be created, and people need to then be educated that they should upgrade their skills. Instead of them thinking that they're going to lose their job, they should then, focus on acquiring new skills. And organizations must also decide on whether they will outsource skills to implement these changes, or whether they will train the existing workforce. I think briefly that's my response to that.
Thank you, Matthew. I'm not sure whether Engineer Chaza is ready with his question, or we can wind up this session.
You can ask, then I'll repeat the question.
The question is, Sanchele talked about project governance. So I believe that quite a number of organizations may have project governance within the organization itself. But when it comes to the board governance at the bottom, at the corporate level, there's weakness in actual oversight on what is happening in projects. And what is your comment on that? How do we to improve that?
Thank you. I'm hoping that we all got that question. That project governance is a good thing, and it's a necessary thing that we need to adopt. But how do we get there where we are at the moment? Yeah, it's a very good question, and it's a difficult one. And as I said, it could be an issue of just lobbying, because I said people don't need to know project governance, project management, to include project governance in whatever governance they are delivering to the organization. But I also of the belief that we can use a push method, where if we hold people accountable of results, they will eventually look around it to find out what can help them to deliver the results. And project management and project governance will come up top as a tool to make sure that they deliver organizational success and transformation. So for those who are already trying or who have that in mind, I am saying don't worry about knowing the details, just have the belief and put the structures in place and the talent in place.
Thank you, Mr. Kutekwa, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. We have come to the end of our panel session.